Before we start this video, I just want to start by saying this is just my opinion. Everything I say in the video about the levels, the level design and mechanics, just my opinion. If that upsets you, I apologize, I do. But those are my stances, and I'm not going to back down from them. So please remain civil. That's all I ask. Remain civil. Watch the video the whole way through. Don't start a comment war. That's it. And if you haven't bought the game yet, buy it, play it yourself, and then come back and watch the video. Thank you for tuning in. Alright? I'll see you in the review.
Feeding the habit again, fool.
Yeah. And?
Okay, I was trying to insult you, but that clearly isn't working. No, you're not making this fun, right?
Says the guy who forces me to play punishing video games because of a grudge over some Sonic reviews.
Enough! Your ego may have gotten larger thanks to you being Spider-Man and the Olsens. But I will make you break. Today's game will prove that much.
Oh God. This game. I remember this game. But hey, it has been 2 years since I last played it. Maybe it will be different this time.
You cannot be serious. You absolutely hated this game. Opinions like that can't just change.
Well, we'll just have to find out now, won't we? Let's get started with the full review.
Every day, you can't hide from me. You gotta pray for the rules, but you could got an out in the face of this out of street. When your friends and boss look alike on the face of it, they miss the history, but they fight all the place in it. Yeah, they fight all the place in it. Honey, by the times that just how the love goes by. I know it's not your fault to say, but there ain't no other way. So step on up to the place. Need your face, what can spin on into the light of us. Step on up to the place. 'Cause this ain't no game. It's time to make history,
Oh boy, Celeste. I have a lot to say about this game, but for right now, let's just cover the basics. Celeste is an indie platformer created by developer Matt Makes Games, the game itself being created by Matt Thorson and Noel Berry, with art by the South American studio Mini Boss and music by Lena Raine. The game released to critical acclaim, and is lauded as one of the greatest indie games ever created. Hell, it's even considered one of the greatest games of all time, and I've got to say, that's an amazing achievement. Something about this game really resonated with people, though I myself did not know much about it until I'd seen my close friend Simon playing it on his Switch during our senior year. But it didn't really catch my interest, and I forgot about it until Christmas that very year. That was when Simon would buy me the game as a Christmas gift, and I would play it for the very first time. Many thanks to you, dude. I definitely appreciated the gift overall, even if I wound up absolutely despising the game. Yeah, I played and beat Celeste, I want to say, about a few days to a month after I got it, and I hated the experience. At the time, I admitted to liking the story and characters, thinking that the general theme of the game was good, but absolutely hating the gameplay. I will completely admit that I was not much of a platformer aficionado at the time. I did enjoy platformers for the most part, but if I was playing one, it was a Sonic or Mario, and not what Celeste is. I'll still admit that I'm not a platformer aficionado, but I have gathered more experience within the past 2 years from having played other games in general. So, I wanted to go into this game with an open mind, to see if all that I needed was time to see the gameplay in a positive light, or as my friend put it, sex. And so I began, playing as the protagonist of our tale, Madeline, a young adult who is determined to climb the famous Mount Celeste for reasons that, for now, will not be elaborated on. As she begins her trek up the mountain, she encounters a strange old lady who warns her of the mountain's magical powers, and how it can be a dangerous experience. Madeline scoffs at the old woman's statements, and emboldens herself to climb the mountain. As she walks away, the bridge beneath her begins to collapse, and in a lapse of luck, Madeline unlocks the ability to speed dash. This is the fundamental ability of the game, the dash. By pressing the X button, or whatever button you prefer, you can make a quick dash in any direction of your choosing. This ability reminds me a lot of Mega Man X. However, unlike that game, you cannot dash again until you reach another safe platform, or one of these green crystals that refills your dash. We will get more into my personal thoughts on the dash later. For now, we return to our heroine. As she slowly travels through an abandoned city on the mountain, she encounters her first obstacles. The landscape is filled with hazardous spikes and platforms that move upon being touched. But Madeline nevertheless prevails in her climb, and eventually stumbles upon Theo, a young man from Seattle just trying to get lost in the interesting landscapes of the mountain. Eventually, after reaching a memorial for those who passed away on the climb, Madeline makes camp, with a nearby bird perching on her head for company. That gives us our first chapter complete artwork of the game, which, I've gotta say, the artwork for this game is top-notch. Studio Mini-Boss really put a lot of effort in making the art as cute and stylish as possible. I really like it. It reminds me a lot of a Pixar film, only in 2D, and it is absolutely beautiful stuff. It's a great reward for completing the various chapters in the game, even if the chapters themselves aren't very rewarding. But, let's not go there yet. Instead, let's see if Madeline is awake. Oh, yes, she is. But things are looking mighty weird as she enters this mysterious castle on the mountain. At first, she encounters these weird star-filled masses all over the place that she can't do anything with. So, she ventures around until she finds a strange mirror. As she gets closer to it, a dark reflection of herself is seen, and ultimately released when the mirror mysteriously breaks. This is Madeline, and she is a representation of Madeline's negative qualities. Or at least, she is for now. Madeline tries to convince Madeline to quit the climb and return to her current life, but the latter refuses, declaring that she needs to climb this mountain. Madeline forces her hand and clones herself to chase Madeline out of the castle. This whole sequence reminds me a lot of Mario Galaxy, a game I haven't played yet but I've heard about and you should probably get to it at one point. Yeah, I know. With those missions with a bunch of Shadow Marios chasing you around the level and getting touched by them kills you. Eventually, Madeline manages to escape and reaches an information booth with a payphone. She proceeds to call a mysterious person who she vents to about her current situation. But it is ultimately revealed that this person stopped talking to Madeline months ago, and that Madeline is currently dreaming. The status of this character is not detailed after this point, though my personal theory is that they were once either a close friend of Madeline's or a romantic partner. I'm actually glad they don't go into too much detail here, as it gives the player the opportunity to theorize about the possibilities and importance of this character to Madeline's backstory. Our protagonist finally wakes up from her dream, after being consumed by Madeline's weird monster form, and meets up with Theo again. After an awkward selfie and a short trek through the castle in reality, Madeline reaches the information booth again, and calls her mother, thus concluding Chapter 2. This chapter is a very interesting turn in the narrative, and it plants the seed for story beats that will come by the end of the game, and for that, I appreciate it. In general, chapters 1 and 2 are probably my favorite chapters in the game, outside of just story. The gameplay in these levels is considerably more rewarding than the rest of the game. They're challenging and have unique gimmicks, but they don't overstay their welcome. This is something that changes once we reach Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is, overall, a decent chapter story-wise, but it is here where the gameplay begins to fall apart for me. We start with Madeline reaching an abandoned hotel. After going inside and ringing the service bell, a ghost suddenly appears. His name is Mr. Oshiro, and he was the former owner of the hotel during his life. He, however, acts very strange, as if the hotel is still open, and tries to convince Madeline to stay, while she is simply trying to make her way through. As she traverses the hotel, she comes across these weird black and red blobs, some lining the floor and walls, some moving around, and some only appearing after she touches one of the walls covered in these weird tentacle things. This is the gimmick of the level, and it is the beginning of my problems with this game. Level gimmicks. Every level introduces a new gimmick that doesn't reappear outside of that level until the final level, which I will explain later. Sometimes it isn't just one gimmick, but multiple. In the case of Oshiro's hotel, these blobs replace spikes as the primary obstacle. That much is fine. But then you have to deal with that on top of the tentacle wall blobs and the moving blobs, often at the same time. I would not be complaining about it if this chapter didn't last about an hour and a half in length. Eventually, the minor problems become major problems when you're spending a decent amount of time dealing with them. That brings up my second issue with Celeste: screen length inconsistency. In Celeste, when you die, you start at the beginning of the screen. For the most part, this is a very fair and balanced mechanic. The screens are usually not very long, and you'll be where you last died within mere seconds. However, starting in Chapter 2, but getting worse from Chapter 3 onwards, are long screens. These screens are often placed in areas with heavy amounts of either gimmicks or obstacles, and also tend to be next to other long screens. Given that when you die, you start at the beginning of the screen, this can get rather exhausting. That's because, in Celeste, one screw-up means death. It doesn't matter what the screw-up is, whether it's you or a gimmick. So, as Madeline finally makes it to Oshiro's location, she discovers that the blobs are actually a manifestation of Oshiro's negative thoughts. After meeting up with Theo again, he warns her to stop trying to help Oshiro, as he believes that Madeline will get hurt. However, Madeline, feeling sympathy for the old host, declines escaping with Theo, in order to try and help Oshiro. She then reaches the presidential suite, where she tries to convince the ghost to let her leave. Suddenly, Madeline appears and insults Oshiro heavily, which breaks his spirit and causes him to ask Madeline to leave. As she departs, she berates Madeline for her treatment of Mr. Oshiro, only for him to show up and ask her why she treated him that way. Madeline paints a negative picture of our heroine, stating that she only does it to make herself feel better, and that he is just a foolish old man. Oshiro, fed up with this mistreatment, snaps, turning into a giant monster who chases Madeline out of the hotel. Eventually, he stops and frantically tells her that the hotel will remain closed for repairs. And so, Madeline departs. Ending Chapter 3.